Welcome to Dave Cooper Live, where each week we showcase the people, the products, and the process helping us build it better. And today we welcome Dennis Mashad, Director of Research and Development at CertainTeed Saint-Gobain. Did you know that Saint-Gobain manufactures and or distributes near all building products somewhere in the world? How are they learning and sharing across multiple industries like aerospace, automotive, rail, and life sciences to enable the easier and more efficient use and reuse of end-of-life building construction materials? And what kind of impact can a building solutions provider this big have on global CO2 emissions? Well, you're going to have to join us to find out. But first, we are only able to deliver all of these informative conversations thanks to our sponsors. So a big shout out to Carson Holmquist and the team at Stream Logistics. They are experts in high stakes freight and the perfect choice for projects with timelines and specific delivery sequences. Shipments with high complexity and unique constraints. The new methods of construction need new transportation solutions, and they are up for the challenge. Check them out at streamlogistics.com. Also, thank you to CombiLift, who is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, an acknowledged leader in load long handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design services. More than 50,000 CombiLift units have been sold in over 85 countries since CombiLift was established in 1998, dedicated to helping companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouses and storage facilities. Please, big thank you to Paul Short. Reach out to Paul, CombiLift.com. Thank you for helping us build it better. And one last new sponsor. I'm so excited about this. Brave Control Solutions. We're offsite manufacturing systems that do more than just improve productivity. They have a unique approach to industrialized construction, a lineup of flexible automated systems specifically designed for the construction industry, empowered by CAD to Fab, a turnkey solutions for 3D volumetric assembly, structural insulated panels, finished wall assemblies, MEP component processing, assembling, kitting, and storage. Learn more at thinkbrave.com. All right, well, without further ado, we got a lot of fun stuff to cover with one big company, and we're going to have Dennis join us right now. Hey, Dennis, how are you?
Hey, Dave, how you doing? It's good to be with you.
I am so excited. And our background kind of says it all, right? Global company. You guys are all around the world. You have your fingers in so many different things. And we're going to talk a little bit about, how does such a big company, how does somebody like Dennis deal, with sustainability and improved processes and all these great things. But before we get into that, Dennis, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Don't leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will call it your mother. But you only have 2 minutes to do it. The floor is yours. Go for it.
All right, Dave. Well, I can barely remember what happened yesterday, but I don't think I'll be able to go all the way back to when I was born. I can tell you that I did grow up in the construction industry. It's what my father did. I grew up hanging drywall. And my kind of earliest memory of this industry is my father telling me every time I went to work with him, hey, get out of this. Don't do this when you grow up. Do something else. And that kind of bothered me because I could see how hard he worked, how proud he was of his work, and the fact that he saw the industry not going in a direction that he wanted his son to be in. I thought there was something I could do about it. So I did, exactly the opposite of what he told me to do, which is I came into the building industry. I got a degree in architecture, and I've been working to bring new technology into this industry that I love for the past 15 or so years. I started at Saint-Gobain and CertainTeed in 2016. Before I was here, I was at a number of different startups that I'd helped start. And, really for me, Saint-Gobain and CertainTeed, as you said, long history, big company, 350-year-old company globally. We've been in the U.S. for over 100 years, I think about 115 years. And there's just so much potential that we can do, that we have been doing, and that we still want to do to help the people in this industry and to help the people that live in the buildings that we build.
Yeah. You know, what I really like about this, Dennis, is you work for a big company, but you were in the industry, like you said. You've been in offsite, you know, you understand all the bits and parts of what it takes to be in a small business or a small manufacturing facility, all the way through where you're at today. So you bring a very well-rounded approach to your thought process. And that's something I've already just picked up on in the few moments that we've had to talk prior to the show. So, let's hop into this, right? We look at a large company like Saint-Gobain CertainTeed. How are you, you know, taking action against sustainability? So what do you do? Like how do you even approach that?
Yeah. Well, our goal is to be the worldwide leader in light and sustainable construction. So for that, it means we have to look at every aspect of the building process. So I'm sure you and your viewers know that the building industry accounts for about 40% of global CO2 emissions. That's huge, right? That's an enormous problem that we have to solve. About a third of that is what goes into the products that we build. Or the products that we use to build our buildings. I'm really excited. Actually, just this morning, I woke up, nice, warm, sunny day, and I get an email from one of my colleagues, Julia, saying, we've finally figured out and successfully made the world's first zero carbon glass for buildings. Right? That is, I
What?
mean, if you think of how much energy it typically takes to build glass, you know, heating of the sand and all of that, it's taken us 300 years to do it, but we're finally there, and I think that'll have a huge impact, just on the embodied carbon of the buildings built across the
So,
world.
so say it one more time. What did the email specifically said what?
Said we just finally figured it out, and we're able to successfully build the world's first zero carbon glass.
That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
That's really cool. All right. Well, there's the next show. Have we got that one covered? I think
yeah.
that's super, super cool. So, you know, when you look at the sustainability side of this, you know, and Saint-Gobain's overall mission, is that something you can kind of walk us through?
Yeah. So, first, we it is a global company, but every country, every region, every state is treated totally, independently. And what I mean by that is we feel it's critical, to be a good business, we have to be a good neighbor around us.
Right.
We have about 100 or so, 120 manufacturing facilities in the United States. Almost everything that we manufacture for the building industry is not only built in the country where it's being used in the US or in Canada, but typically built in the same region where it's built. So that already has a huge impact. You can imagine all those trucks moving from a factory to a distributor to a job site. It can really add up if you're not careful. And then it's what we do at our factories to reduce our own carbon footprint. We take kind of a two-pronged view. One is we want to maximize our positive impact on the built environment, and minimize our own footprint in that environment. So at each of our facilities, I'll give you an example. Last month, another glass facility in Minnesota, Sage Glass, we figured out how to recycle 1,000 tons per year of glass just in that facility. So Sage is, I don't know if you're familiar with electrochromic glass. So basically it's glass that when it's really hot like today, you can see I'm sweating because it's hot in my house.
Right.
Really hot like today, if I had Sage glass, all my windows would automatically dim.
Sure.
To make it less hot in here. And then as it got cooler, they would start to open up and be clear again. A month before that, we installed the heat recovery system at our Vancouver gypsum plant. That saves 10% of energy for a plant that's making all the gypsum board for a good chunk of Canada. 10%'s a lot.
Right.
So just a couple of examples. In February, we in our Chinchilla, California insulation plant, we figured out a way to save the carbon's worth of 1,000 cars per year. So just really focusing on taking each manufacturing facility independently and saying, what can we do to dramatically reduce its footprint on the environment? And then, of course, how do we continuously develop new products that make the buildings that our builders, our customers build, be much more efficient.
Sure. So I'm imagining there's a pretty big team of people that are really focused on this for the, for the company itself to look at all these different factories. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Dave. There's, we employ about a little over 100,000 employees globally, and I would say each one of those employees is focused on sustainability. Our purpose is to make the world a better home. Everyone understands that. Everyone, whether it's someone like me and my colleagues in R&D, or someone in the plant, we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we reuse as much waste as we can? How do we reduce our footprint? How do we make better products? And often a lot of our best ideas and the ideas that have the biggest impact are coming from someone who has been on the manufacturing floor and sees a better way to do something.
Right.
They feed that up to my team and me, and we try to make it real as quickly as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And just from your experience, whether you're a large company or a small company, do you really start at the same place? For those listening out there, when you look at sustainability, I guess you start at the same place for every manufacturing facility. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you kind of do. I mean, it depends on what is the biggest problem at that facility, or the biggest opportunity for improvement. I'll take an example with water. Last October, in our Kansas City insulation plant, I believe it's the largest insulation plant in the world. We said, the process of making insulation can be intensive for water, no matter where it's being made, no matter who's making it. We figured out a way to recycle about an Olympic swimming pool worth of water every day, just at that plant. So, maybe the scale of what we can do is a little bit bigger than, for example, the startups that you were mentioning that I've been a part of. And that's the reason I do like being at Certainteed and Saint-Gobain, is you can make that big impact. But it's the same thing. It's where are the biggest problems and how do we focus on addressing them?
Right. Well, let's get into the factory and the innovation and manufacturing. I mean, that's something you have a lot of focus on, right?
Yes.
But let's, what kind of innovation and manufacturing are you talking about?
It can be everything from using new digital technologies. So a big buzzword right now is Industry 4.0. And that's, how do we measure every single thing that happens in a factory using sensors, and then look at that data using, what's typically called big data. So, far too much information than one person or a team of scientists could process on their own.
Yeah.
And we use algorithms to process that and see, where are there areas for improvement. It may be areas for improvement that improve, the material efficiency. If we can make a 1, 2, 3% difference in how much raw materials, it makes a big impact. It can be, improving the quality of every fiber in insulation has an impact on the thermal performance of that insulation. And that's something that touches all of us.
Yeah, for sure. So your day-to-day, walk me through your day-to-day of what you have to do. I think I'm so interested in just understanding, like, how do you manage your day-to-day with such a big initiative happening globally?
Yeah. Well, first, early on, Dave, you said, how am I addressing these challenges? It's not me. I'm fortunate
Yeah.
to work with everyone I work with is smarter than me. So it puts me in a good position to kind of get out of the lab. And what I mostly do is speak with customers. So mostly installers, builders, also homeowners, and try to see what matters to them and what some of their pain points are. I said early on that my father was in the industry, and that he had, he didn't want me to be here. And that's always bothered me. I think that I saw him, I see our builders that use our materials as craftspeople. And a craftsperson needs to have a good material to work with, right? If you're a woodworker and the quality of the wood is poor, it doesn't matter how good you are, how hard you work, it's not going to be good. The same for, a chef working in a restaurant. If the ingredients aren't good, quality isn't going to be good. So I want to know, where are they seeing problems in ceiling buildings that there isn't a solution to address, or maybe there just isn't the knowledge on the best way to address that. Are there challenges with installing siding, for example, that make it very difficult to achieve, a nice uniform look? We had, such a challenge in the industry where it was very difficult to get siding to look perfect. And, if you're an installer and you're under the gun, right, you're expected to show up there in the morning and be done by the end of the day, preferably by lunch. And so you can get home and have dinner, because you don't want to come back there the next day. And we saw a problem that made it very challenging for anyone, no matter what product they're using, to install siding. And a colleague of mine, his name's Garrett, he developed a completely new way of kind of looking at how siding is installed, and looking at the way it's manufactured, to make that much easier for other people to install siding in the future. And that's just one example of why it's important that I am talking with customers and getting out of the lab where they don't want me anyway.
Yeah, and understanding all that. And I think, that kind of leads into where I wanted to go to, and that's, taking a look at the products and the research. You guys are always working on technologies that service or, help to enable the easier and more efficient reuse of end-of-life building construction materials. Can you kind of give us some examples of that?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, we're always thinking about what are our grandkids going to say and what are they going to think. And, as a company's been around for a long time, we have short-term goals, but we also think, we've been around for 350 years. We're imagining what it will be like 40, 50, 300 years from now. And, we want to ensure that anything that we put on a building, we put on a house, we can take back and turn into more building materials, or if not building materials, into something else that we can reuse. An example, sometimes it's reuse of our own waste material. Last December, we figured out how to reuse about 15,000 tons of waste per year at our gypsum plant in Kentucky. Right, so that's material that no one else knew how to recycle, and that kind of paves the way for, okay, now how do we start taking back gypsum board from job sites? How do we take, not just our own products, but other people's products? So we have, a number of folks working on just that challenge in each of the businesses. I'll give you an example of roofing. Fortunately, most roofing is made, especially asphalt roofing, is made out of byproduct of an industry. But to date, no one has figured out how to efficiently reuse that material. So we have, we're working with a few different startups as well as our internal team to figure out how to address things like mountains of roofing that's just, it's just sitting in landfills right now waiting to be reused. So how do we take that in? How do we do that efficiently so that we're not using as much carbon in transportation as we are saving and reusing the material? And how do we turn it back into new building materials?
Right, and reusing that. But, it brings me to, you're not just in the building materials. Like, your company's in aerospace, automotive, rail, life and sciences, right? Like, how do you take all of these learning experiences and share them across the multiple industries? Because you don't just focus in one area. You take your experiences from all of these different manufacturing opportunities that you have and share them, yes?
Yes. So, maybe getting outside of circular economy for this one. So one of the things that you had mentioned offsite construction, and we see a lot of opportunities there to address both the productivity challenges as well as the sustainability challenges related to building homes and buildings using offsite. One of the challenges there in offsite is, what do you do when two modules, two panels come together? Right. How do you seal that efficiently so you don't have challenges down the road? Well, that's a problem that the automotive industry and the aerospace industry deals with, every day, every second, right? They have you have a car door that closes, that never leaks. So how do we use those technologies in the building industry to make it a lot easier for offsite factories to do their job and to make things more efficient on a job site.
And do you find a lot of similarities that can be cross-pollinated, so to speak, between the industries?
We do. There's a lot on the manufacturing end. So we have something we call world-class manufacturing, which is it's a set of principles that we can apply regardless of the country and regardless of the industry in terms of how to make our production process more efficient. And it's actually something that we've been speaking with prefab factories about, is how can we actually teach you some of these things that has been so successful in our manufacturing, whether it be in life sciences and automotive and aerospace. Because at the end of the day, you're taking in raw materials, you're processing them, and you're trying to get them to your customer as efficiently as possible. And those same things apply regardless of the industry.
Sure. And you guys are not only looking at the industries that you currently, own or work with, but you work outside of your company with startups from around the world as well to develop, launch, and manufacture technology, correct?
We do. We
Can,
do.
can you give me some examples of that? I think that's super important for people to understand that everything you do is just not internal. You're working collaboratively with other businesses globally.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. One example is a startup called Ecomedias. So Ecomedias is a software company, and they've taken a lot of the challenges in specifying sustainable materials and simplified it. So, for example, if you're maybe in a larger building that has an architecture firm that's focused on the specification, the architects can have that knowledge of all the products that are out there and the life
Right.
cycle assessment between one or the other. If you're a home builder, you don't have the time to do that, and you might also not have access to all of the information that's needed. And even if you did, are you going to read 50-page life cycle assessment from one company or another? So Ecomedias takes all of that, distills it, and basically gives a scorecard to every product. We've been working with them and helping support them, but it's not just our products that are in their platform, it's our competitors' products, and it's a way of bringing transparency to the industry.
So this Ecomedias, I mean, it's something that's available to anybody, or is it a paid for platform?
Absolutely anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
it's
mean,
not paid for. It's like a Google for building materials.
got it. And if somebody goes there, they want to research, whatever it is about that certain product, they can find all the information in regards to the make of the product, the sustainability of the product, all of those things.
Yep, exactly.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
All right, so there's a way to research products and to understand the products we're using or not going to use in our house, and also look at competition's products. Let's talk about some of the manufacturing, and I think people may know some of these people here, such as Unity Homes, Factory OS, Benson Wood. You're also working with them, and how do you work with them, and in what capacity, and what are you learning from them, or maybe they're learning from you?
No, I would say that at least we're learning as much from them than they are from us, if not
Yeah.
more. Working with Unity Homes, Benson Wood, Factory OS, we have other partners also in Offsite, and really that's about understanding the pain points of that industry. Offsite construction isn't the only way to solve the 3 million home deficit that we have right now. There's 3 million homes that we can't build
Yep.
every year that are missing. But it's one good way of doing so. And so, we're learning from Unity and Factory OS, what are the things that we can do as a manufacturer of building materials to provide solutions to their factories that make them more efficient. We're also understanding their best practices in terms of sustainable building. Unity and Benson Wood, as you know, Dave, have been really leaders in sustainable construction for
They have been.
since the 70s. And so there's a lot that we can learn about best practices in building better homes.
Yeah, Unity Homes, Benson Wood, Jay. We were talking about Jay Lepley a little
Mhm.
earlier today. I mean, it's a super smart team, and they have been focused on building better and sustainability long before most people started really truly looking at it in the industry.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so another cool company we're working with called Hyperframe. So Hyperframe, in a way, does a lot of what offsite construction can do in terms of efficiencies, but brings that to the job site where offsite construction in certain cases may not make sense. So they have digital tools that basically pre-think all of the materials that are needed to build a building down to the exact, quantities of everything that will go into that process, to eliminate waste on the job site. We've been very fortunate that we have kind of control of our manufacturing, our own manufacturing, so we know how to deal with that waste. But on a job site, anything that you do to cut off, what do? You're not going to bring it back and reuse it. It usually ends up in a dumpster. So Hyperframe can, if they can allow us or a builder to have shipped to the job site exactly what is needed, that can really make that process faster and be a lot less wasteful.
Right, right. I mean, so Hyperframe is a digital solution, has augmented reality, right, to help with the on-site efficiencies as well as
Yeah,
off-site.
exactly. So another piece is um, how do you train people to use new ways of building, right? So if you have a new building product, you can't get to every installer and teach them how to install it. And we do know that the quality of the installation is so important. The installation is so important in how the building performs. So by using basically something like safety glasses, you can see exactly the way that something needs to be installed right in front of you as you're installing it. So it's a little bit like real-time YouTube of the installation training, but it's exactly what we're doing.
Right. I mean, I think, using these digital tools today, it's at our fingertips. We had a guest on earlier in the week that says, he said, why are we still, building with buckets when we have fire trucks, right?
Yeah.
And these are the types of tools that our industry needs to start embracing, all the way from manufacturing to the person in the field doing the installations and so forth. So I think that's a brilliant thing.
Fully
One
agree.
other company, this is interesting to me as well. Is it InnoViews, retrofit
Yeah.
solutions for their windows, right?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest pain points or the biggest challenges in sustainability is the holes in the buildings. And we're able to increasingly build and manufacture more and more energy efficient windows, but the majority of windows that are out there are much older than the latest technology. And it's very expensive to go and rip out all the windows in a building and reinstall new ones, and it happens very rarely. So what InnoViews is doing is actually they've created a way of retrofitting a film to the glazing that vastly improves the performance, almost as though you've went from a single pane to a double pane overnight. So it's another example of a small company that we're working with to help bring new technology to the building industry.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think this is so important for everybody to understand because, again, looking at the bigger manufacturers, bigger suppliers out in the world, the general population doesn't really get to hear what you're truly working on and how you're truly doing it. And then who are the people like yourself behind the scenes that truly give a darn, trying to make that difference within the company and what have you. We have I'm going to put a comment up here real quick as we'll continue on. It says, great conversation. SG has ambitious sustainability goals overall, but was curious to know, are you seeing a market demand and price sensitivity commodity products like drywall shingles on sustainability?
Yes, we are. But to be completely honest, we are focused on sustainability because we think it's the right thing to do, and because we think this is where the world is going. So even if we were not seeing that demand, we would still be doing it because we want to be good neighbors. We want to be responsible people in the world. There are areas where people think more or less about in terms of sustainability. So drywall may be an example where people don't instantly think, I need more sustainable drywall. but actually the manufacturer of typical gypsum board has a lot of opportunities for increasing efficiency. So yes, we see the pull from the market, but we're more focused on getting to carbon neutral by 2050, which is a big goal, and reducing a third of our CO2 in about 7 years.
Carbon neutral for the company the size of yours is a big task, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. Hey, look who joined us. He must his ears must have been ringing. Jay Lepley, what's happening? He says Dennis is such a thoughtful person with a great team to back him up. I would agree, man. Jay, when you come back on the
Thanks,
show,
Jay.
man. Haven't seen or heard you in a while. That means you're busy, which makes me happy. That means people are out there working and doing great things as well. Hey, Mateo says hello. And I think Mateo had a question down here. Why don't we go do that real quick, and then we'll get back into our conversation. Dennis, you mentioned that offsite modular isn't the only way to solve the housing crisis. What, to you, are the best solutions for this problem?
Yeah, Mateo, thanks for the question, and it's nice to see you as well. I don't know if I'd say that there's one best solution. I do think that we need to allow our installers, and builders, whether they're in a factory or on a job site, to be much more efficient and to achieve quality, more quickly. I'll give a simple example. Insulating a building, regardless of the type of insulation, is something that can be is very prone to quality issues if someone isn't really paying attention, right? So it's easy to leave a gap in the insulation. It's easy to have two studs that are so close together that there's really not an efficient way to seal the space between the studs. So how do we pre-think the layout of those studs before the job site to optimize for efficiency? So that's something that offsite factories, modular panelized, I know Jay is working on this, does this all the time at Unity. That's something that comes second nature to an offsite factory. We can bring that same way of thinking to a job site. That means that the insulation always fits, is always tight, it's always the right size. That means the gypsum board has minimal waste. So you not only aren't wasting raw materials, then you're not throwing away the scraps. I've been at way too many job sites where I see a hole in the ground behind the house where they just filled it with scrap material and cover it over as though it will magically go away in 10 years. And it doesn't. So, having that pre-rationalization on the job site, the same way they do it in the factory, is another way of being more productive, faster, better, more sustainable, and using less raw materials.
So a job site without dumpsters and holes. I didn't even know you were allowed to dig holes and bury your stuff anymore. Something tells me I don't know where you're at. I don't know where you're at on that project, but I've not seen that. I've come across it when digging up old homes in the past, right, where you find where they dumped everything. But that's interesting. And hey, Jay, if you're still listening, let us know what you're doing to optimize the site, right? Because that's always been a problem, Dennis. The manufacturing side, the efficiency, the accuracy of manufacturing solutions, and then you bring it to a job site which has so little boundaries for efficiencies and accuracy, because it's really up to the person that's doing that work to really spend the time to make sure it's right. So it's not repetitive, so to speak. Are there certain things that you guys are looking at to fix that by using different systems from a factory in the field?
Yeah, so one is, Dave, you mentioned systems. So moving away from just supplying kind of raw materials like gypsum board and insulation, to equipment and building systems that make the process of installing higher quality for less time. One example is a product we have that's called Optima, which is blown-in insulation for wall cavities and for attics. And part of the technology that we've been working on is how do you fill a cavity as quickly as possible, make it as tight as possible, know that you've actually achieved the right density of insulation so that you know it's performing, and actually use less material in the process of doing so. So we have some exciting things coming out soon that are, just around that topic and further improving that. Yeah. And then, also it's about the educating of kind of installers educating us and us helping educate installers. And one thing that I'm really proud of, we work a lot with Habitat for Humanity. And the nice thing about Habitat is when you have volunteers that are building, for example, we just built a net zero ready house in Canton, Ohio last year with Habitat. And there you have someone who maybe has built a little bit before, but they're willing to tell you, hey, I don't really quite understand how to do this.
Right.
What is it? What am I doing wrong? And you realize there probably are other installers with 20 years, 30 years experience like me. I think I know how to build things. I bet there are things that I'm doing wrong that I've never found out, that we can go and help and provide training to say maybe there is a better way of installing roofing that's more efficient, or a better way of hanging wall boards so that it's easier on your back and uses less material.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at a company like Habitat for Humanity, where they're using volunteer labor to build their houses, having systems, in place to where they can kind of paint by numbers, so to speak. If I simplify it, makes a lot of sense, especially for an organization like that, but that's overall just a great thing to look at for everybody. Hey, look at that, Jerry McCahey in the house. It's great to see a company like Saint-Gobain committed to the offsite industry in both Europe and the U.S. Yep, definitely so, Jerry. Appreciate you tuning in today.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, so we're coming up on time. I want to touch on just a couple more things, and then we'll wrap up with that circular economy just a little bit at the end again. But I think, renewable energy, right? You guys are continuously improving on photovoltaics, solar panels, solar roofing solutions. Touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so we've been in solar for a little over 10 years, and really the reason that we got into photovoltaics is we see it all part of the building system of a roof. If we're talking about rooftop solar, so not only is it a good thing to do for the world and for the environment, it's also economically a really good thing to do for families, whether it's buying the solar panels outright or through a power purchase agreement. But one of the challenges is you're drilling all these holes in your roof. And while people, a lot of Americans, people across the world want to be more sustainable, want to have renewable energy, they don't want to have the risk of their roof leaking because the company that made the PV panels, the solar panels, the company that installed them, the company that made the roof are three different ones. And Dave, you and I have been in the industry enough to know that this is the most common hand signal of the industry, right? It's not my fault, it's those people's fault.
Right.
And so we said, is there a way that we can offer it? Yeah, exactly. Is there a way we can offer it all as one system, one roof system that makes your roof generate energy? And then once we did that with rack and panel systems, we said, hey, why don't we replace shingles with shingles that are photovoltaic? And about 8 years ago, we launched a product called Apollo. And what was exciting about Apollo is the shingles, there were, your typical roofing shingles. And then right next to them, there was a shingle that installed exactly the same way, but it was a little solar panel. And that way you didn't have double materials. You didn't put all these holes in your roof. It looked really nice. Yep. And people could start generating energy. Dave, I think that, at some point in the future, whether it's my kids or their kids, they're going to look back and say, how could you have built building surfaces, especially roofs, that aren't generating electricity? That's going to be nuts to people. Like my daughter wondering how we used to have cables on phones because we didn't know how to make cell phones.
Right. We were just talking about that yesterday. Ma, get off the phone. I'm waiting for somebody to call. right?
Yeah,
That's how it
exactly.
was when we grew up, you know?
Yeah.
Only you had a cabled phone in the house for sure. Well, I love the fact that you guys are focused on that. Let's also talk about, we touched on it a little bit, but certainteed siding accessories. You touched on the insulation. What's happening there that's exciting to share? Because certainteed, in my mind, is probably in 80% of all the modular manufacturers in the country. I think everybody uses certainteed, or a bunch of them do.
Yeah. I mean, we're very fortunate to have a broad portfolio of products. I don't think there's really any other company in North America that has roofing, siding, insulation, gypsum, and commercial interiors. And so it allows us to build a very strong relationship with large builders as well
Right.
as with modular factories, as you mentioned. Um, in terms of insulation, we're always focused on how do we make the process of making insulation more energy efficient. And we talked about that earlier, some of the reductions that we've been able to do there. But also, how do you improve the R value of the insulation for the same amount of material? And how do you make the installation process quicker and more efficient? And we talked about that Optima product that does that. The other piece that's very important is what's on the left and the right of the insulation, or the inside and the outside of the insulation, the membranes. So making sure that we have a full suite of products for our installers that cover the various climate zones, various levels of moisture permeability, so that you can build a house that can be tight, that can be high R value, but that won't have issues of mold. And Dave, off camera earlier, you and I were talking about some of that challenges. And mold is a real problem, and increasingly with young children, you don't want to have a very energy efficient house and not have the products to keep mold away, to keep rot away. And so having all those products is very important to us.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned mold, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Yes, we have Shemaine Nugent, Ted Nugent's wife, on our show this Friday, and we're going to be talking about the toxicity of mold, Killer House. You may be wondering what Shemaine Nugent has to do with that, so tune in Friday, 1 o'clock. You'll love it. She's a great speaker, and she is on a mission for sustainability. All right, Dennis. We're getting close on time here, but I want to make sure we cover everything, right? Solutions to help offsite construction manufacturers. You just mentioned, you're working what's on the left, what's on the right, but coming up with efficiencies for your siding installation, for your the insulation in the walls and the other products. Are you guys working with manufacturers to come up with better ways to optimize their processes for the installation of your products?
We are, and we had mentioned Unity Homes, and it was great to see Jay join on. Factory OS. We've been also having a number of conversations over time with VBC, who of course and Vaughn over there, and really it comes down to, we can't deliver products to factories that are the same materials and products that you use on-site construction. Right. Everything that we use to build buildings, to build houses right now, has been optimized for on-site construction. And there are a lot of constraints that you can get rid of when doing that construction in a factory, and you can actually use much higher performing materials. Right. Yeah, so absolutely. And we really value those relationships, because it gives us sort of a very inside view into what some of the challenges are. We've been fortunate to build also some great buildings in partnership with these factories. A factory, B Marco, down in Georgia.
Anthony Couture's. Yeah. I know Anthony, sure.
Yeah. So we worked with Anthony to build 2 COVID hospitals a couple of years ago. That was excellent, because he was building it super fast, and we needed to see how we can meet his needs, which is not only about the product, it's also about how do we get the materials to their factory in an efficient way. We're building a veterans facility in Philadelphia with Vaughn at VBC this year. We're really happy to do that, and that'll be another example of where we we actually try our products in a factory and try the latest things that we're working on to see whether it does bring that production efficiency.
Yeah, that's veterans housing, I think is what it is, for vets in need of housing.
Yeah, exactly. In particular for, I believe it's for veterans, female veterans with PTSD, which is a huge challenge.
Right. Mateo says he worked on that project. St. Cobain really came through.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, for a young guy, Mateo's worked in a lot of places already. All right, last question, and then we're going to wrap it up here. This is from YouTube, a future unknown. Hey, thanks for joining the channel, and make sure you subscribe if you're not. Dennis, if you had to read the tea leaves from CertainTeed's perspective, where do you think the industry in North America is headed 5 to 10 years down the road? Thanks.
Oh, geez, that's a good question.
Get to predicting.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what I want to see, not what I'm sure will happen. What I want to see is one of the first questions that anyone asks about a building product is, how sustainable is it, and how easy, enjoyable, productive is it to install from the installer's perspective. I think caring both about the future of our planet is critical for anything we do in the building industry. 40% of all carbon emissions globally are caused by the building industry. That needs to be top of everyone's mind, whether you're shopping at a retail store for building materials to do a renovation on your house, or you're building a new home and you're talking with your contractor about that. And then also, again, as I mentioned, thinking about the people that are building the homes, whether they're in a factory, an offsite factory, whether they're on a job site, making their life easier, more productive, better jobs, safer. That's really critical, because we can't have good quality buildings if we don't have happy, fulfilled people that are building those buildings.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And Dennis, that's a wrap for today. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything that I missed that you think is super important that we just can't end the show until you put it out there?
Yeah, sure. Just one quick thing. I'm really proud to say 72% of everything we sell, sustainable products. It's about 40 times our own carbon emissions in terms of the positive impact. That's a piece that I'm proud of. And Dave, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun having you. Thanks so much to you and St. Cobain for joining us to talk about this. It's super exciting to see all the things that you're truly working on, not only just for now, but for the future of everybody on the planet and the manufacturers and builders out there, because we need to change how we build. We need to do it more sustainably for sure. All right, listen, everybody. How much fun is this? You got to tune in this Wednesday. Broad USA is going to be on the show. We're going to talk about stainless steel buildings, multi-story buildings built out of stainless steel, no concrete floors, 10 times lighter than a traditional building. You got to see it to believe it. They also have 100,000 square feet of manufacturing they can put out the door in one day, and their modules actually fold. One wall is the floor, the next side. Got to check it out. And be sure to put on your calendar this Friday. Shemaine Nugent going to be on the show to talk about toxic mold with her new documentary and new book getting ready to come out called Killer House. So be sure to join us on Friday as well. All right, Dennis, thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing.
Hey, Dave, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody, that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hopefully you watched it live, but if you're watching the recorded version, we appreciate it. Put your comments out there. We will get back to you. Dennis, stay right there. I'll come back to you after the outro. Bye now.